Today in this video, I have another nice tip for beginners and newcomers regarding polishing. The correct posture for using the polishing machine. How do you operate the machine most safely and effectively over the paint? Let's take a quick and compact look at that today. Have fun. The topic I want to discuss with you today is really super important and crucial, because I have often seen this in workshops, especially with beginners and newcomers, that they sometimes have difficulties keeping the machine flat on the surface. And one reason for this is the lack of reach, and what is directly related to that, the size of the vehicle. Here with the BMW, you have a really damn large hood. There are certainly larger and longer hoods out there, but it's not just such a huge hood that can become a problem. A very large roof can also be an issue. Here on the hood, it is absolutely essential to divide the whole area into different sections. The machine must lie flat everywhere. That means if you drape the cable over your shoulder and polish from the side, everything is quite relaxed. You can easily reach everywhere. No problems at all. But you will also notice that sometimes it gets really tight to reach the middle. And you have to lean your body against the fender at times. So be careful about your pants and such. Always wear the most comfortable clothes, as you know. It's not that easy to always reach the middle. You have to stretch very far over it. That's why you are forced to divide the whole thing into sections. Because if I want to polish the edge here, for example, you see which area I can work on at most, and no one works permanently in a stretched position. This means that no one will work within this range. It puts a lot of strain on the shoulders and arms. One will always work in a slightly bent position, which results in a much smaller area that can be worked on. That means I would divide this hood here into at least 4 parts, if not even into at least 6 areas, and perhaps also treat the sides separately. It always depends on the shape of the vehicle, or rather on the shape of the surface. How many bends are formed here and how much is there in specific areas. Sometimes you really have a smooth surface. It's important that you divide it well. And what this has to do with your positioning of the polishing machine, we will now take a closer look at. I can only demonstrate this here on my hood as a representative example. If your hood is a bit shorter and you notice, okay, I can really get up close to the top, you may have already noticed the following. We are not doing a polishing tutorial right now, and I will only run the machine very lightly on level 1 so that I don't have to push it over the paint, but rather let it move a bit freely. That means I'm going to lower the speed, and I'm now going to move the polishing machine up a bit, and you'll quickly notice that I have range issues, so pay attention to the position of the machine, of the pads on the paint. And here I will show you a typical beginner problem that many struggle with, which can also create holograms. I think you all saw that well. As soon as my reach decreases, and that's why it's so important to divide this properly, I start to tilt the machine down at the back and lift it up at the front. And this happens with longer machines as well, because you simply can't build up the reach anymore. At some point, your guiding hand, which in my case is the left one here in front, becomes too short. This means you need to divide the work. The same thing happens down here. I see this very often. Many people want to polish the area down here right away. This means they take the polishing machine very far down, but forget to step back, staying very close to the paint, and you can see what happens. One tends to automatically lift the back of the machine, creating a lot of space underneath. This is of course exaggerated, but you can see it very clearly. This means that people polish when they are polishing, usually on the hood like this. You have 2 options to effectively prevent that by stepping back once. Or you can switch to the most comfortable way and sit right in front of your vehicle, because then you have everything much more comfortably, as you have much more control and a better overview of the entire polishing process, and you won't be in your own way. And I have seen this quite often, especially with people who are new to the topic, that they simply say, okay, I want to get everything done at once. Many want to start with this, but they simply do not consider the time commitment involved, as you cannot polish everything at once. You can't start at the top left and end at the bottom right, and this is a large polishing area. That doesn't work. When it comes to large hoods, and you will definitely come across a car or get your hands on one, you really need to take your time to divide the whole area and also adjust your position as you polish. Because it works much better That's why I often focus on the front area of many vehicles. I consider it as a single polishing area because it's simply much easier to polish rather than constantly moving over the entire, or let's say 2/3 of the hood. So, heed these tips, stand nicely in front of the car, and give the whole thing a bit of space, which means the following. And there is not just one absolutely correct way. Everyone finds their own style, I always say. Everyone finds their own polishing method, but I just give you the tips so that you can incorporate them into your polishing process beforehand. And not just realize while polishing, okay, why do I have such terrible holograms at the bottom and top in the end? When it comes to finish polishing, you can also angle it a bit. It's not entirely correct, but the whole system will forgive you for it. But if you want to bring a bit more cut or something like that into play, you often have the issue that if you angle it too steeply at the top or even down here because you leave yourself too little space, you then create terrible holograms here. And of course, this also applies to other machines. We don't even need to talk about rotation here. So if you misalign there, it will get even worse. So really think about this. Position yourselves wisely, divide the areas nicely, and then you can also work on such an area successfully and relaxed. And now another tip about division. This hood is a typical example of one of the most annoying things there is, because first of all, we have a huge area. Secondly, we have these design edges everywhere. Let's just call it that for now. Here, up there, here on the side, and here on the side up. Essentially, we have several longitudinal surfaces. Once here on the side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the whole process cannot start from the top, as you just saw. You say, okay, I will only do the middle and start here at the top, polish down to the tip, and then back up. The surface is much too large for the polishing action. This means you have to at least divide it. That means we have 2, 4, or 6 individual sections that I will then polish. And here on the side, it gets quite tight. You have to slide along the side with the chair at times. But if you don't necessarily have to watch the time, you can gladly share that here again. That means 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 sections, 10 individual sections that I work on. And here you can see my span really in the most extended position, and that is totally uncomfortable. No one is going to try to polish like this over the paint for long. It's not fun. That's why you can't reach it very well from up here. This means you will never completely cover this area in the middle. You need to divide it up. So I go up a bit and start polishing the first section here, as far as I can reach. And then I take the second position, which would be here in my case. And then I come exactly from that point down. This is how I would divide it, for example. And we also need to consider the middle area. You can't go over the middle part. Regarding the vehicle, I'm specifically talking about this model. You can't go beyond the middle of the range. I'll stand by the side again. It sounds very theoretical, folks. You see here, this is the furthest point. I could lie down on the car, then I would reach a bit further over, but that's obviously not ideal when polishing. That means you have to polish from here and from the other side, this piece here down on this side. This vehicle here, or this surface, is particularly suited to demonstrate how elaborate this division can be and what one should really pay attention to. Yes, and now we have arrived at the roof, and here it is the same disaster. If you want to polish an SUV or something like that, it starts with the Audi Q3 or Skoda Karoq. These whole really very tall vehicles. And it doesn't matter what the price range is. Anyone who buys an SUV and wants to polish the roof will find it difficult. He just has to use a small step or something like that, or a small bench, depending on how best to get up. And now the point is again here. Think about your clothes. I don't make these polishing videos in jeans and fine fabric because that is absolutely unrealistic. You need something that is really soft, no buckles, no zippers or anything like that. Just keep that in mind. And that's why I'm running around here in these clothes. Here, you can see my reach. You can still open the door a little bit, but let's test it. It gives, let's say, about 10 cm more, but then you end up hitting your chest against the door frame. Firmly, so this is already the maximum. And for this car, it is even necessary, as I just barely reach over half of the roof. And here again, the same thing. You can now nicely look from the side to see if your polishing pad is still lying flat. But I often see the following. People polish and look here at the backing plate. Just simple. That was the smallest setting. The backing plate logically stays still. We won't consider that now. But you saw how I tilt the machine down at the back and lift it at the front. That means it starts sawing again. The support plate remains stationary, even with smaller machines. You have already looked at the whole thing in part 1. And here you have exactly the same problem again with reach, with division, and with tilting the machine. Just for fun, try moving the machine over the roof without, of course, actually being on the roof. You rub it, and then you can see which radius you can cover. And here you clearly notice, okay, we definitely need to open the door at the back as well. And now we can really reach all the way from back here to the very back. That means I would divide this roof area here into 4 parts. Nice up to the middle. We can also take these small design edges into account. This means we can first work on the area at the top. Once I have finished that, I will then move over here. Well, I still count that as one area. I would divide the roof into 4 sections. The details around the roof antenna can be done with a small machine. Otherwise, this is a bit more comfortable than, for example, the hood. So today in the video, a bit more theory. I'm going to take down the small polishing pressure points here. A bit theoretical today, but I find this very, very important because in many videos, everything is only shown practically and many nuances are not addressed at all. And I would like to deepen this a little with this small additional series because I am now also writing part 2 about it. And that is why part 3 will also be about the next topic. We will also look at the topic of cleaning polishing pads in between. What should one pay attention to? How can I tell when a polishing pad is simply at the end of its life? I won't say anything more about it for now, but how do I know when it's time to switch to a new polishing pad while polishing? Such topics will definitely be included in this video series. If you have any questions about these details, feel free to write them in the comments below. Maybe I have something that I take for granted where you might say, Sebastian, that's just a point that I've noticed. It's not that simple and not many people think about it. Feel free to write it down below and I'll include it in this little additional guide. So I'm really trying to provide as much information as possible, and here in this video, the topic of division and machine handling. Pay close attention to how much reach you have, how much span you can cover. Position yourself wisely on the vehicle, divide the areas comfortably, and take your time with it, as this also saves pain because no one wants to be permanently tense over the paint surface. And these are very, very important points, and this also applies to the small machines. You saw this in part 1 as well. But even here, if you have a surface where you are working with a small machine, it doesn't matter whether it's a large or smaller pad. The reach is always predetermined by your arm length and the length of the machine. No one grabs the machine at the back and tries to polish something far away. That doesn't work. So, divide the areas nicely and place the machine flat and cleverly. Change your position. Thank you very much for watching. That was a little theory lesson, but I hope it was short, compact, and informative. Until next time, feel free to leave your questions or suggestions in the comments below, and I am always reachable via WhatsApp. So, what now? Until next time, bye.